Well, hello, everybody. It's Casey Jaycox again with the Quarterback Dadcast. We are in season 6, which, if you've heard me say it before, I'm going to say it again. It feels fantastic because we're doing something right, or we just have one person that keeps listening, and we want to thank that person. But no, joking aside, our next guest, his name's Trent Cotton, and I found Trent through my good buddy Brad from Assemble, and I heard about their conversation. I'm like, oh, he seems like a good dude, and so we had a great conversation, and I told him, like, I wanted to have but mainly this podcast, and we're not going to talk too much about Hatchworks AI, but we will. But more importantly, it's about life as a dad. And so Trent's like, dude, let's do it. So quickly about him, he's been in the industry for over 20 years within HR and talent acquisition. He currently serves as the vice president of talent and culture at Hatchworks AI. He's a South Alabama Jaguar, I believe. But more importantly, he's a dad, and that's why he's going to be on the show today. So without further ado, Mr. Cotton, welcome to the Quarterback Dadcast.
Hey, thank you so much. You are the first person to reference that I'm a Jaguar. I actually forgot the mascot until you told. Oh wow, that was a flashback.
Well, I have a weird, very bizarre, weird sense of humor. I think most quarterbacks, we definitely have a screw loose because we like to have fun and bring energy to the room. But I have this thing that I always think it's fun to like reference where people went to college and find out their mascot. And usually I get the response you did, like, oh my God, how did you know I was a Jaguar? But it's kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, they didn't get a football team until well after I graduated there, which it wouldn't have made any difference to me. I'm not a sports person. So, but for all those that really cherish being an alumni from there, that was a big deal for them. So kudos to them, I guess.
There we go. Well, we always start out each episode with gratitude. So tell me, what are you most grateful for as a dad today?
I am thankful for the relationship that I have with my daughter. So just, kind of pulling back the onion a little bit, her mother and I separated whenever she was about 2.5 or 3 and moved. So there was like 3 hours of distance between the two of us. And for the longest time, all I had was, a couple of phone calls during the week. And so, if you're a dad, imagine trying to maintain a relationship with your 3-year-old on the phone when sometimes they don't want to talk. It's hard to get them to talk. So there were numerous nights that and I'm not exaggerating, I would cry myself to sleep just thinking, okay, I'm not going to have the relationship that that I've always wanted to have with one of my children. And it's fun. It's very comforting now. We talk just about every other day. If she's not calling me, I'll call her and check on her. And some of the things that I worked really hard to do, which is create that safe environment where she can come and just say whatever she wants to. There's no judgment. And some of the conversations we have can be something as minuscule as what to wear, or as deep as physics and God and politics and history and all that other kind of stuff. And I like the full spectrum of it. So I'm very grateful for that. And then this week, I am also incredibly grateful that all those years that I was committed to it. But as a dad, sometimes you second guess yourself, you feel a little guilty, but I have instilled in her since she was 4 or 5 years old, excellence always, EA. And she has really taken it to heart, and it is who she is. And she got accepted this week into the master's program in civil engineering at her college.
Let's go.
And so she is super, super excited. So she graduates in May and she starts, I think, in June, and for her master's. And she's amazing. She's absolutely amazing. She had every reason in the world and every excuse in the world not to be as driven and successful as she is. And she is all of that in spite of her life circumstances. So I'm incredibly grateful for that.
It's awesome. I always love asking parents what makes them grateful. And we always, as a dad, when people ask me about my kids, I light up. I can't wait to talk about them. Mm-hmm. It's like we're proud of them, right? And what I'm grateful for today, Trent, is my son's in college, and he is, I'd say, halfway through his freshman year. And I know that when I was in college, like, God love my mom and my pops, rest in peace. Like, I called a couple times a week, maybe, but
Yeah.
I talk to my son every day. Not
That's
because he's
awesome.
like, oh, dude, dad, leave me alone. Like my wife and I are like, no, he loves like we've. I'm grateful for all the hard work we did. Is like I feel like it's starting to pay off now, and we're still going
Hmm.
to keep working hard and hopefully get the next benefit in 20 years from now. But we're like we're not like, oh, my dad's a douche. He's such a tool.
Yeah.
Like they respect us. We have great relationships. We talk about a lot of stuff. Um, I'm a passionate about the word curiosity. People that know me,
Mm.
and it's a superpower. So I've been worked really hard to teach him and my daughter that skill. But I'm grateful for my son that he still loves talking to mom and dad each and every day. Because when your
Yeah.
kid goes off to college, as you well know, that was brutal. That was so hard.
Yeah. Well, it was, but there is there's something in life that I've learned the hard way that every trial, once you learn the lesson, you're able to move on, and there's another trial coming down the road. But for me, those times that all I had was the phone call. I mean, luckily, I think in 2011 I was able to move where she was living, and so I got to have more of the split parent type of relationship and time period with her. But even then, we had to both kind of get used to it because we were used to just talking to each other on the phone, seeing each other every other weekend. So there was an adjustment there. But during that time, if you would have told me, "Hey, you're going to be grateful that all you have is a phone call later in life," I, I don't know that I would have been nice, I guess, just to say. I probably would have told you where to go and who to see when you got down there and the best course to take. But there's some reality to that because now, 20 something year or what, 18 years later, I can hear her on the phone and I am so in tune with her voice and go, "What? Hey, what's wrong? Are you sick? Who's bothering you?" Like I can listen and be a lot more attuned than I think I would have been had she grown up in the house with me. I wouldn't. I'd be able to notice her behaviors, but now I can get it down to just the tone of her voice and the word inflection that she uses. So it's learning how to be thankful for the trials,
Yep.
and it yeah, it's just funny now that I'm kind of stopping and thinking about it. It's like I can go and relive those moments of going. I remember one time I was ironing my work shirt, and I wasn't able to talk to her the night before. I think she was 4 or 5 years old, because she didn't want to talk to me. She had other stuff that she wanted to do, and just that I went into that death spiral of going, well, she doesn't want to talk to me now. She's not going to want to talk to me when she's in middle school, high school. She's going to have her friends. Like I was just going through this thing and I was sobbing, and I'm not an emotional person. Um, so I mean, it was very gut wrenching. So to come out on the other side of that and actually now be able to look back with some gratitude, is something else I'm pretty grateful for.
Love it. One of my favorite quotes. It's actually from I'm sure it's from someone else, but I heard it at a college basketball coach who just a great. He actually left basketball because he just didn't want to deal with what's going on. But his name's Tony Bennett. He said adversity is life's golden ticket,
Mm,
and when
very true.
you can like trade, it goes back to mindset work. But you can choose like this isn't happening to me, it's happening for me. Like and
Hmm.
try to find something to be positive because it's like you said, there's always going to be stuff that sucks sometimes in life, or we get this. But the time I focus less worrying about woe is me and try but I'm flawed just like every other human. When we get in those
Hmm.
funks, how do you quickly get out of it? How do you quickly get out of it to
Right.
try to find the blessing in it? But
And the other one that I've learned to live by, and my grandmother taught me this in college. She said you can either complain about the change or lead it, and that, for better or for worse, in my career, that has been something that I have really stuck to. Because for a lot of it, you can get into that woe is me because, oh, this change is being inflicted on me. But if you change your mindset and go, how can I inspire and lead this change and be at the forefront of it and be in control of it? There's a lot more ownership there, and you start finding ways that you can sow into that rather than being so resistant.
shout out to Grandma for dropping some wisdom.
Oh, so funny story. I was very close to both of my, especially my grandmothers, but grandparents in general, very close. And the relationship that I had with my paternal grandmother, a lot of my friends were like, "Who are you talking to?" And "Well, I'm talking to my grandma." And they're like, "You're talking to her about that?" Like, I mean, there was no subject that was off the table between the two of us. And whenever I was going through a pretty rough time, I called her one time and I said, "Hey," and she could hear in my voice. I mean, she would say, "Hey, what's bothering you? I'm not going to drag it out of you. Just tell me." And I would just kind of crumble. But I remember I told her one time, I said, "Hey, can you pray for me? I'm going through a really rough time." And she goes, "Absolutely." And she goes, "I pray for you all the time. Are you are you praying for yourself?" And I said, "Yeah. I just feel like every time I pray, it hits the ceiling and comes back down. Never missed a beat." She goes, "Then pray outside." And I was like, "What do you say to that?" I mean, she just she had those just right between the eyes. And anyone that has known me for a long period of time knows that she is one of the few people on earth could shut me up with something and just do it so eloquently, just so wise. So I'm very blessed to have had two sets of grandparents that were just amazing, amazing people that just they're still part of who I am today, and also too part of who my daughter is.
Are they still alive?
No, I lost my last one. Actually, both paternal grandparents passed away last year, and my maternal grandparents passed away in, I want to say, 2018 and 2017 and 2018.
Okay.
So,
Rest in peace. Yeah, it's but that
oh yeah,
the nice thing is the memories will be there forever.
absolutely,
The voice will
absolutely.
be in
I
your
can
head
still hear
forever.
their voice. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
oh yeah. And I was telling my husband that when my daughter called with the good news, the first people I wanted to call were my grandmothers, because I knew that they just would have been like all over it. So it's moments like that that I do miss them. But the amount that they invested in all of their family, it's generational. So it's definitely a gift.
Love it. Well, bring me inside, Trent. The I would call this I have there's a little bit of a sports metaphor, but this podcast is not about sports. I played
Okay.
quarterback in college, so it's like the theme of playing a quarterback could be a leader of a team, and so I was like, a
Yeah.
quarterback could be a leader of the house, but sometimes a quarterback's got to check his or her ego and lead
Hmm.
from someone else. So maybe just kind of with that, maybe bring me inside your huddle per se, your close
Hmm.
your family, and tell me a little bit about your husband, and tell me a little bit about um, maybe a little bit more about your daughter that you're so proud of.
So it's kind of interesting. So just our nucleus is the three of us, and it's really interesting because she has a relationship with my husband that's completely different than the relationship she has with me, and she's also very close to my sister. I'm the oldest of four, and my sister lives in Atlanta as well. So case in point, she's trying to pick out graduation dresses. And so, being my daughter, I'm a data guy. I survey everything. I love data. She sends us a text with a Google form with different that we had to rate the different dresses, and I just got so tickled. I'm like, this child is cut from the same cloth.
That's
But she
funny.
sent it to my husband, me, and my sister. And so that's kind of the nucleus that she has here in Atlanta. But our group of friends are very intertwined with her. Like they're always asking about her. They whenever she comes, sometimes we'll have everybody over, and they treat her just like one of the gangs. So it's very interesting because she's got that, but then on her mom's side, it's a very close extended family. So she's kind of got the best of both worlds. She's got kind of a small nucleus that we all kind of move at a different pace, and we respect each other's pace. Um, and then she's got the large family where you've got all those large family dynamics of everybody needs to do a certain thing a certain way, and then so she's got the best of both worlds, I think.
Very cool. Well, it's interesting, man. I would say within the last 30 episodes I've done close to 300 now. There's been a lot of
Hmm.
co-parenting
Hmm.
episodes,
Hmm.
and which maybe I'll dive into later, but which I think it's and I'd love love to learn like what's there's probably good days, bad days, but it's just a constant communication of just working hard to um, put your daughter at the forefront of the decisions. But it's been interesting, just like having talked to some people, because knock on wood, I've not experienced that. I don't want to experience that. My wife and I have been married. It'll be 26 years this month.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, we met in seventh grade too.
Oh, wow.
Crazy. Yeah. So,
Wow.
but before we dive into some of that, I'd love, Trent, to go back in time if you can, and just
Hmm.
talk about what was life like growing up for you and the impact that your parents had on you now that you're a dad.
Oh, hmm. So I mentioned I'm the oldest of four, and both of my parents were raised in very, I wouldn't say militaristic, but it was a very lead with control versus context. And so my parents were young whenever I was born, I think 19 and 20. And, my brother was born 3 years after me. So, they had to grow up very quickly. And I have always been different. I think differently, and I don't really function well in a command and control type of environment. I like to be able to contribute. I like to discuss things. I like to ask why. I was nicknamed Riddler in school because I always ask why. Like, why are we doing it this way? What's that? And it's just because, to your point, I had a huge curiosity, and I like to understand not just, hey, this is a watch, but how is the watch made? Why is that gear more important than this one? To a level that I feel okay enough to be able to say, yeah, I trust the watch. Bill and Debbie were not my parents were not very much like that. It was like, do this because I said so. And I was not a sports kid. I mean, I grew up in the country of Alabama, so Grand Bay, Alabama. Grew up, a lot of land. So I mean, all of my friends that talk about, yeah, I snuck out in high school, and I'm like, I didn't sneak out. I was scared to death what was out there. I heard it. I didn't want to see it. So it was a very different environment, and the things that I did learn from my parents was work ethic. Um, Both grandfathers and my father, you weren't going to outwork them. It was almost a competitive thing. Um, I also learned in our family what you said you would do, you did at all cost. Um, so there's a lot of pride in our word saying, okay, I'm going to come over and help you with your load of, or help you with your hay next weekend. I wouldn't make plans for next weekend because I committed to you, and I know that you're depending on me. There's that sense of community and interdependence that was incredibly, incredibly important. And then just excellence always. It maybe not the way that they tried to teach me was the best, but I did learn that in the beginning, and I think that I'm better for it. Um, but yeah, the questioning thing. I remember pre-algebra, seventh grade. So I skipped to one or two grades going from elementary to college preparatory. So I went from math, where it's long division was probably the most complex thing that we were doing, to now there are letters in the equation. I did not get the part of what a letter meant, what a variable was, and I was being expected to just do some of this basic pre-algebra. And I remember sitting on the floor with my father, and he was trying to explain. He goes, "Move X to the other side." I'm like, "Why?" And he goes, "That's what you do." I said, "Okay, can we talk about where did X come from? Why are letters involved in math?" He goes, "It just is." And my brain just didn't work that way. I mean, I was used to making straight A's, not having to study. I mean, I'm very blessed that my parents instilled in me a very, very strong commitment to education. And they did it for all of us. All four of their children, they have the pride enough to say that all four of us are very successful in our own right and contributing members of society. And not a lot of parents can say that. So kudos to Bill and Debbie for that. But I remember, he would just get so incredibly frustrated, and because he just understood it. And well, to my pre-algebra teacher also told me, she goes, you got to see, um, math is just not going to be the thing for you. And something else I got from my father's, don't ever, ever tell me that I can't do something. That is the worst thing in the world to tell me, because I am going to try like hell to prove you wrong. And so I did. Whenever I got my 92 in Calculus 2 in college and I slept through the class, I made sure that I went back and I showed Miss Eaton. And she goes, "I always knew." I said, "No, no, 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 no. It's not what you said. You told me I would never be a good math person." here's proof that it was you, it wasn't me. So it was just kind of that constant battle between my parents and me of I wanted to go one way, I wanted to think about things differently, and they wanted me to conform, and it was just like oil and water. So um, yeah, work ethic, commitment, um, very protective of family. Like they're very protective of the people they love, and I am too. But also too, don't pull any punches on things.
Yeah. Um, Tell me what they meant, and then what you mean now by excellence. Excellence always. What does that mean?
So for them, it was being at the top of the class. Um, when you did your chores, you did them correctly. And I hate washing dishes because I had to wash them growing up, and my brother would dry, and my father was his dad was Air Force, so I mean he was a military brat. And I always tell people by proxy, I feel like I was raised by someone in the military. He would inspect. My father would inspect the dishes, and if there was a spot, he would put it back, and we would have to start all over. And he threatened one time. He said, "If you don't clean these right, I'm going to yank every dish out of this kitchen, and you're going to wash them all by hand until whatever time it takes." And he made true on his promise. And we were on the last two or three, and my brother was just tired, and he was thought it was funny, and he left a thing, and my father took them all back out and put them all back in. So we washed every dish in the house twice. But it
Jeez.
taught me something, like don't let there be a spot on something and think that it's okay. And so there was a little bit of that perfectionism. um, but I'm thankful for it because I don't do things halfway. I can't sleep because in the back of my mind, I'm thinking I'm going to have to wash every dish in the house. I was cursing him at the time, but
Yeah.
I'm thankful for that lesson now.
Well, it's a
For
choice.
me, it is. It is. But I think for how we were raised, it became part of our psyche of how we define who we are. Um, my sister is a hard worker. She and I have worked at the same place twice, and um, we worked at a bank together, and she worked for the division that I supported in HR. And the COO would email both of us and go, "I don't know which one of you takes care of this, but here's what I need." And he knew that he never had to follow up with us because we were going to get it done, and we weren't going to tell him, "Oh, that's my sister, get it with her." He knew that I was just going to get it done, and to me, that's excellence always. You're doing the right thing whether you're being watched or not, because that's the right thing to do. And that's what I've tried to tell my daughter. um, do things whenever people aren't looking and do them well, and I promise you it'll take some time, but it'll become such a habit for you that the world will start to notice. And I think that's what she's starting to see now.
Yeah, that's good. What? Tell me what Bill and Debbie did for work.
So interestingly enough, both of them were high school graduates, never went to college. um, my father did most of the working. We were lucky my mother stayed home most of our childhood. And my father started with the company he's with now as a truck driver. And he had lost his job before that, was out of work for a little while. I mean, luckily we lived on a farm. So, I mean, we had food and things like that. But he did odd end stuff until he got this job working as a truck driver or delivery driver for a piping company. And some 30 some almost 40 years later, he's been running that branch and a couple of other branches. They play hail to the chief whenever he comes into the room. He worked his way up, he worked his way hard.
Very cool.
And for me, I'd always admired that people in his office would come and go, "Hey, how do you solve this problem?" Because he had worked in that position. That's how he got to be in the position that he's in. And I think that's something, now that I think about it, I think it's almost been subconsciously ingrained in me that whenever I'm in a leadership position, I want my team to know that I can get down in the dirt just right along with them and shovel. And I don't think that I'm any better for it. That is definitely something that I learned from him. So he's
Yeah, it's so important.
very accomplished to be, a high school graduate only. But I mean, he looks at engineering stuff, and he taught himself accounting. At the funeral, he and I were talking about AI stuff, and it was just kind of funny. He was, being a dad, well, I know this and this and this, and I'm like, well, that's cute. But we had the conversation, so he's definitely intellectually curious.
What I guess having parents to have you young, that's a challenge for
Mm-hmm.
them, I can only imagine. But like the blessing is maybe you get more time with them if they're healthy at later in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe your
Mm-hmm.
your daughter gets grandma and grandpa longer. And I say that kind of maybe out of envy because my dad passed away. My dad had us late. He was like 9 years older than my mom.
Mm-hmm.
So my dad, when he was in his he passed away at 79. And
Mm.
I hope I'm like rocking 90 when I'm,
Yeah.
and stay fit. And
Yeah.
so I'm sure that's got to be at least fun at this stage of your life where you're, have had success in corporate and executive roles.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure your pops is proud of you for doing what you're doing.
Yeah. You know, my parents and I are not as close. We talk every once in a while, but they're just, again, I'm very different. So, for a long time, I resented them a little bit for that. But now I've just kind of come to understand that they can't relate to the things that are important to me, because that's just not what they're accustomed to.
Mm-hmm.
Case in point, my mother, when we were talking not too long ago, she goes, "So what do you do?" And so I said, "I work for Hatchworks AI." She goes, "You do AI?" I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "I don't trust that AI. I don't use it." I said, "Okay." I said, "Mom, do you use Siri?" She goes, "Yeah." I said, "That's AI." She goes, "I don't want them listening in on me." I said, I promise you, you live in Grand Bay, Alabama on, 100 acres of land. There is nothing of interest to you from the NSA or anybody else, so just rest assured you're okay. Um, but to me, it was just kind of like, okay, they don't really understand what I do. Part of that is because I don't really tell them, but I'm not in the industry that my father's in. Both of my brothers are. Um, both of my brothers can build a house, just like my father built a house from the ground up. They know how to fix anything. I'm not wired that way. So I think part of that is just there's a lack of relatability, and I'm okay with that. That's fine. I still love them. I still respect them. Um, but I'm not as close to them as I wanted to be, and I think that really it influenced the type of parent that I wanted to be.
Yeah. Well, if it makes you feel better, I am atrocious at handy skills, and my wife is actually way more handy than I am. And sometimes she's like, "Hey, what happened to you?" I'm like, This is not my. I can type and talk, and
Yes.
in front of a lot of
Yes.
people. I'm comfortable. I just
Yeah.
can't fix anything.
Right. Well, and I think that's what frustrates me the most. I don't know if you can see behind me, but my husband actually did that piece of art, and I told him, I said, "Well, we can build a frame." And I measured it probably 20 times, and we went back and forth to Home Depot because I had measured or cut it wrong or something, and I was so frustrated. He says, "Why are you so frustrated?" I said, "Because my father and my brothers could do this on one slice, like probably wouldn't even have to calculate in their head as much as I have, and I can't get this done right." It's just kind of this, they have this bar over here and I can't compete over there, and it drives me crazy. But to your point, there are certain things that I can do that they can't, and that's okay. That's what make the world go around.
100%. That's like I used to get like same kind of what you said. I used to get almost like self conscious about. I'm like, God, why am like I'm a great secondhand. Like I'm a hard worker. Once someone kind of starts doing, like, oh, that makes sense. But if I have to
Mm-hmm.
like be the engineering mechanical mind to see how something's going to be built, I'm like, yeah, I got nothing.
Mm-mm. Nope.
My mind just doesn't work that way.
Nope. Yeah, my father tried telling me one time whenever I was in high school. He says, "You're going to need to learn to know how to do these things." I said, "No, I'm going to make enough money to pay someone who does." And so that's been a
What an
very
answer.
guiding feature. Yeah, yeah. So, but I mean, whenever I lived in Mobile with them, there were several times where I called him. I go, "I have tried everything. I've looked on YouTube. I can't fix it." And he has this ability of coming over and going, "Oh," and then he does like two things and it works, and it just sends me into orbit. And so, but he has a gift with that kind of stuff. And so did both of my grandfathers. They could look at anything and fix it. It was kind of impressive to watch.
You need people like that. That's why you leverage them,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
Um, so you and your ex wife separated when your daughter was young. Um,
Hmm.
what were some of the obviously and you talked about in the very beginning with gratitude, like just the challenge of like having a relationship with her via phone. Obviously, it's got a lot better now, which is great. Um, maybe talk for a dad out there that's maybe going through similar challenges or
Yeah.
that is struggling to really connect with their son or daughter in a similar environment. What
Mm.
maybe talk about some lessons learned if you feel comfortable, and maybe some actionable advice that's really worked for you that they might be able to take out of our episode today.
So I got some amazing piece of advice from a friend of mine whenever we were going through the split up, and she told me never say anything negative about Celie. That's my daughter's name, about Celie's mom in front of her. Nor do you let anybody else do that. And I held firm to that. And sometimes family members would get ticked off because I would say, no, 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 we're not doing this. And and also too, there were sometimes I just really wanted to just bash her mom for something that was going on. But I held true to that, and I'm thankful um, because at the end of the day, whether I liked her mom or not, or her mom liked me, we had to support each other. And my job as the father was to disagree with her mom one on one, but we presented as a unified front. Probably the bulk of the time, it was not ever easy um, because I was okay with being the bad guy. You know, if I knew that holding firm on something was going to benefit Celie in the long run, I was okay with that. Her mom has always kind of struggled with that. You know, you always have one parent that wants the kid to be the friend and the other parent who's the parent. I was the parent. And even now I have to, remind my daughter, it's like, look, I am your father before I'm your friend. So I want to do both, but you're not going to disrespect one at the expense of the other. So finding that line was very important. But if there's a father out there that's going through that, that's the first rule, um, and especially if you have a girl, because you are setting the tone for what they will tolerate in their relationships. And whenever I was kind of debating back and forth about divorce, I grew up Catholic, went to a priest, was talking to him, and he asked me a question. He goes, "Is this what you want your daughter to view as normal in a relationship?" And that was all I needed. I was like, "No, I don't. I don't want her to think that this is okay, that this is how people who love each other are supposed to act." And holding firm to making sure that I always showed respect to her mom and did all that. There were several times where I really had to keep my cool. But I think in the end, that was the right decision. The other thing is, I always focused on things that just she and I could do, like just our little routine. So when she was growing up, when she was little, we would always watch Tom and Jerry or Bugs Bunny, and on the
Solid
couch, and she'd
choices.
fall asleep. Yeah, she'd fall asleep. It was like our routine. She'd get a bath, she'd get her juice. We sit down on the couch. She'd make it through one, and she'd be out, and then I go put her to bed. And so that kind of became our little thing, like movies and stuff like that. Um, so find something that's just between the two of you that you can share and make that a routine. And that becomes your child's safe place. And I think
Yeah,
those are
that's
probably
good.
the two biggest pieces.
What I think what you said is absolute gold, Trent. I think it's easier said than done. It's easy. It's easy. It's easy, and sometimes even me and my wife, it's like being that united front isn't always easy. And
Hmm.
specifically, as you do separate, you go through a divorce. Sometimes it could be really toxic environments where one's playing against the other. And I commend you for the mindset you have and the advice you took from your friend and followed through on it because one of my favorite pieces of advice I got in life is someone said, "Do you want to be right or do you want to get what you want?" You
Mm.
can't get both. And
Yeah.
being right would be easy to say, "Hey, my ex-wife's an idiot. She's da da da." Well, that doesn't solve anything. But
Yeah.
getting what you want,
And
which
it
is a
actually
healthy,
says more about you, believe it or
yeah,
not. And that was something that I had to learn probably the first year, because our divorce was not pretty. It was very ugly. And there's still, like, she and I, we can be in the same room. I mean, we'll say hello. We'll keep it nice, keep it cordial, but it's not like we're just there's just too much there, that's okay, for the benefit of our daughter. You know, I tried to kind of keep the peace or whatever. Um, but for fathers, when you're out there bad mouthing the other, it actually looks bad on you. And I learned that the more that I tried to put down the other side, the worse I looked, and it kind of defeated the whole purpose. I was trying to make
Yep.
myself look good
Yep.
by at the expense of somebody else, and in return I was actually making myself look bad. So don't put your laundry out there for everybody. Have those one or two friends that you can call and go, this blah 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 blah. Just don't get on a podium in front of an audience and talk about it. Nobody cares. you
Mm-hmm.
know
Well, it's kind of like just like in business, like you bash your competitor to your customer,
Oh yes.
you're going to lose. Let them
Hmm.
figure it out for yourself. You can ask questions. That's why, again, back to
Yep.
curiosity is a superpower. You can ask questions that will
Hmm.
expose he or she or the competitor. But if we're the one leading with it, I totally agree with you. It says more about you and like almost like makes us look insecure. Like if we
Right.
have to put, blow out someone else's candle to make ours brighter. Well, why?
Hmm. And just one last piece of advice: do not try to get your child to choose sides. That is something that, to me, that's warfare at the expense of your child, and that's just, you don't want to do that. And it's easy to want to get there and do it, but I just want to challenge you: take the higher road. You'll benefit in the end. I mean, my daughter and I have a thing. If you want to know why your mother and I got divorced, there are, we actually went to court because I wanted full custody. There's depositions. I'll let you read them, because your mother, me. You'll be able to read that, and you'll be able to determine what's truth and what's fiction. And she's said, I don't want to know. It's irrelevant why you two split up. And I respect that.
Yeah. Did you have full custody?
No, I did
No.
not. State of Alabama, it's very hard for the father to get full custody.
Yeah. I did an episode on the court system with a former Major League Baseball player. Um,
Mm,
and it was a powerful episode. It was really, I got educated. I mean, you just don't know, you don't know. And but when you
mm,
take time to ask questions, kind of like what you did as a kid, you learn a lot about. And he flat out said, "Is like the reason why I am getting more custody is because I have money and I can pay legal fees and I can keep paying legal fees to kind of keep getting the next step. But like when a
mm-hmm,
man and woman have a child, the the automatically he was saying that's like they're automatically you can get divorced and 100% goes to the mom."
mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, that is not right. And it's just like this how the systems work. And so it was pretty interesting to hear his take on it.
Yeah, it was very, like I said, it got really really ugly. Um, but that's all in the past. We're good. Got I have the relationship with my daughter that I was fighting for, but I didn't fight for it. I was fighting on the wrong battlefield. I was trying to fight in court because that was a short term play. Luckily, one day I kind of said, you know what, I'm going to play the long game here. And once I set my mindset on that, all the little trivial stuff that happened on the day to day stuff, I measured against, is this going to get me closer or further away from my end goal with my daughter? And made my decision there. And it really kind of helped me keep things grounded.
So cool. Well, good for you for seeing the light in a tunnel. I want to say be the bigger person, but I think sometimes it is being the bigger person. It's
It is.
setting your ego aside and doing what's best for Sealy. So that's a cool story for I think people to hear, because when you get stuck in the short term, just like in business, when I work with sales teams, it's like you're going to lose. But like seeing the long
Hmm.
game, that's why I think winning people is the most important thing versus a transaction. And it's the same thing with relationships and family. It's like see the big picture. And
Completely.
um, what was, as you think back, one question I like asking dads is like an area of their dad game where maybe um, it wasn't they weren't their best, or maybe it's something you're still working on. And maybe I'll lead my witness here,
Mm,
Trent. For me, I have patience as a competitive person.
mm,
I think interviewing 300 dads, my patience has gotten way better.
Hmm.
because I'm getting free therapy out of every episode. Um, but for you, tell me what's an area of your dad game that might speak to dads at home, or that you're either you know it's not quite where you want to be, but you're working hard to improve it.
Huh. So I have always been very honest with my daughter. And there are times that, looking back, I think that maybe I not necessarily shouldn't have been truthful, but I should have been a little bit more judicious on my omission. You know, your child doesn't need to know every fault that you've ever done or every bad decision that you've ever made. So I think that's something I'm trying to be a little bit more cognizant of. But I did it as a way to kind of say, hey, whatever you come to me with, I'm not going to be surprised. You know, chances are I did it, I just didn't get caught, or I know someone that did it. I want you to come and ask me those questions because the people that you're surrounding yourself with do not have the life experience that I do, right? But I think that I went a little too far in some cases, just kind of sharing bad decisions that I made. You know, they're funny now, but I think that's kind of the big thing. And the other thing too is that I'm very particular about presentation and fashion and all this other kind of stuff. You know, every time my daughter comes, I take her shopping. And whenever she comes here, I'm like, I bought you all those clothes. Why are you wearing those? You know, like,
Yeah,
what is it? So sometimes I think I need to be a little bit more conscientious because I don't want for her to think that that's a reflection on her. It's just more of, you have nicer things. You know, why are you wearing something that you should just be wearing around the house? But also, I've learned to just kind of respect that she has a different style than I do, and that's okay.
yeah, yeah. I wish I had fashion, Trent. I am so comfortable in jeans and a t-shirt, and my wife's like, that shirt's like so old. I'm like, but it's so comfortable. And
Right? Yeah.
why would I
That's
change
why.
it? It doesn't
Yeah.
stink. I'm not.
Yeah.
My hygiene's good. It's just the shirt's old, and
Yeah.
I super comfortable.
Hmm. I mean, and it's funny. It's not just my daughter, but like friends of mine, even someone I know from the industry put on a conference last week. It was her first conference, and the weekend before, she's like, I don't know what I'm going to wear. So I was, helping her find stuff to wear, and I was like, no, don't wear those shoes with that. It clashes here, and then, there's like all this back and forth, and then there was this little lull, and I said, oh my god, I'm so gay, like. I said, you know, what in the world, why am I telling you how to do all this? But, my daughter and I have a rule, even though she doesn't follow it a lot. Um, but if somebody else is in the car with her, I need to know because, you know, how she and I talk to each other sometimes, kind of take people aback just because we're real, like there's not this cordial thing. But sometimes she'll set me up and like hit on a nerve of something that she knows I'm going to say something. And then, I hear everybody in the car laugh and I go, Cecilia, she goes, I know, but I knew that you were going to say something like that. And my friends don't believe that you say stuff like that. I'm like, well, I do. And thank
That's so
you
good.
for everybody getting a laugh at your father's expense. I appreciate that. But it
You know
makes me
what?
laugh though.
A little humility, which is good. I mean, good for you and the fact that your daughter calls you and still, you know,
Oh yeah.
that's great. I
Yeah.
think that story is fantastic. Um, what maybe for a dad at home who got married, is in a same sex marriage,
Hmm.
that's raising a daughter. What
Hmm.
are some challenges that maybe you've gone through, or some successes that might speak to them, that might help someone, get just be a successful and best dad that he could be?
It really is. I was lucky. My daughter was very open minded. I mean, whenever I came out to her, she's like, "Dad, I know." Like, like duh. Um, and it's, I guess I struggle because I don't even think it has anything as much to do, and it might just be because I've been so blessed with my daughter and how she looked at this. It has less to do with same sex and everything to do about the environment. When she comes here, I love the fact that you can kind of feel her just kind of like go, huh, like she can relax. She can read her book. She can be on her iPad. She can do whatever she wants to do. And she knows that George and I are going to laugh about something and probably say something we shouldn't say in front of, my daughter or whatever. And everybody laughs. I think it's more about the environment, but
That's
you
good.
really have to do it based on the child.
Yep.
If your child is uncomfortable, and this could be with a new step parent as well, because there was a story in between there that I actually got remarried for 7 or 8 years, and she had 2 kids, so I had 3 kids at one point. Um, but it was creating a safe environment for my daughter, and I think this is the first relationship where I think she feels safe. Because I'm also blessed because I have an amazing husband who is incredibly interested, super protective of my daughter. Funny story. There was one night, you get the call at 2 o'clock in the morning, and immediately, as a parent, your brain goes to worst case scenario, and especially whenever you hear your daughter crying. And I'm like, baby, what's wrong? Are you okay? And George got up and was going to the bathroom, and she's like, Dad, I said, have you been in an accident? Like, are you okay physically? She goes, yeah, just somebody. She had an argument or something with her group of friends. I said, okay, sweetheart, I love you, but lead with that next time. And I see the bathroom light come on, and George is dressed. And I just said, Celia, hang on a second. I said, George, where are you going? He goes, well, she's crying. I figured that he woke from a dead sleep, brushed his teeth, got ready, and was ready to go. Like, didn't know details or anything. I mean, he was like ride or die. And I think, and I told Celie that story later on. And I think that the more that both parental units can show that child you're safe, you're loved, you're respected, that says more than any kind of tips or tricks or little cliches. If you put all your effort into that, everything else falls by the wayside.
No, it's
So
well
I'm
said,
very
man.
blessed. I have an amazing daughter. I have an amazing husband. I love when all of us are together, and we just kind of have our own little routines. Like my daughter loves to cook. I love to cook. Um, and George just sometimes he's just funny, and he doesn't even know that he's funny. And my daughter and I get tickled, but then also too they have little jokes about me, but I still don't know what they are. But like every once in a while I'll do something and they'll look at each other and they'll laugh. I'm like, what's this? But I love that. I love that they have their own little relationship. So I think the more you can nurture that, the better everything's going to be for everyone.
Yep. No, well said. Um, okay. If you did a great job summarizing that. I was going to ask you to maybe I'll do it again, just in simplistic ways. If you just kind of summarize what we've talked about today, Trent, that dads or moms or anybody really can take from our conversation
Mm-hmm.
and to be that better leader of their home, leader of their team, leader of their company, leader of their friend group. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that they can take from stories that we've shared and things we've talked about that they can apply in their own life. You could kind of summarize it into 2 or 3 actionable pieces of advice or nuggets of wisdom. Tell me what comes to mind.
Lead people to where they need to be, but don't judge them for where they are. I think so many people say, well, you should be here. And their judgment comes out in behaviors or words or actions that prohibit that person actually reaching where you think that they should go. So for my daughter, I know that she's smart. I know that she's driven, and I know that she has these goals. So I'm going to lead her every way that I can. Part of it she's going to actually have to do. But I'm not going to judge her for not being able to make $150,000 right now. That's stupid. It's counterintuitive. And a lot of people listening may go, well, that's a stupid example. But if I think she should be at a certain level or have learned a certain life lesson and she hasn't, it's the same concept. I'm not going to judge her. It just means that I need to spend more time teaching. So lead where you want them to be, but don't judge them for where they are. For either parent, man, woman, 2 men, 2 women, whatever in between,
Yeah.
do not talk ill about the other one in front of the child. Do not get your child to choose sides. That is immature. It is parental malpractice, and it's just disgusting. Your child doesn't need to do that. That's not their role. Your job is to develop them. They have enough going on in their life now. I mean, we had enough growing up. We we thought we did. At least all the bullying and stuff that I had at school, I could leave at school whenever I was growing up. They can't get away from it. Don't add insult to injury by bringing your drama and everything on top of them as well. And then play the long game. Set a goal. This is something that I like to do whenever I'm doing any kind of change management, coaching, or stuff with companies. Always get the leadership, write a press release for a year from now, assuming that you hit this goal. What was the goal? How did you get there? What were the lessons that you learned? And then put a date on it. And it's really interesting because then that becomes the North Star when we're
Yeah.
going through that change management process. Are we going to hit that press release? If not, do we need to change the press release or do we need to change our tactics? And I think parenting is the same thing. How do you define success in raising a child? And then let that be your North Star and let that be the lens of every decision that you make. It goes through that lens.
Love it, man. Well said. I have a good buddy. He always say, well, hey, what's your end game? Like, what's the goal? And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's so how
Yep.
you articulate that, Trent's really, really good, because sometimes I think I see parents, we put our goals or our expectations on where we think they should be, to your point about judgment, but it's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's their life.
It
Like, they're
is.
not going to do what you want them to do. Let them do what they want to do, and then just support them. So they're going to be a much happier
Mm-hmm.
version of themselves versus like, no, you're going to play in the band and you're going to play
Yep.
football. Well, no, I don't want to do that.
Right.
So
And just one piece of advice for someone that's got like a toddler or very impressionable, something that I learned from a psychologist or counselor, whatever you want to call him. Because I was very intent whenever Celi's mother and I split up to make sure that I held true to raising a good child. And it's, I don't know what the name of the book was, something about child raising a reasoning child or something like that. So from a very young age, 3, 4, 5 years old, everything she did, I said, okay, was that a good decision or a bad decision? Okay, so what kind of consequence are you going to get as a result of that decision? And now whenever my daughter's talking, there's certain things that like kind of come out, and I go, okay, she listened. I did my job. I did what I was supposed to do. So teach them kind of like that flow chart and help them understand what the consequences are at a young age. It's going to make it so much easier in life. And you're giving them guardrails. That voice is always going to be in their head. What's going to be the consequence I get? Because it's going to determine whether this is a good decision or a bad decision.
love it. Okay, if people have no idea what Hatchworks AI is, they're like, "What is this?" Like, tell us about what Hatchworks AI does. Tell us about what you do, and how
Mhm.
can people connect and learn more about the work you guys are doing.
Also, yeah. So Hatchworks AI, we are a wonderful company that is comprised of employees in the U.S., also employees in Latin America. We are your AI development partner. So we kind of help you from discovery to deployment, and our goal is to bring the age of AI and kind of that human AI integration for all. We really are passionate about the democratization of information, of abilities and everything that AI is being able to bring to the age of humanity, and we're just partnering with companies to be able to bring that to reality. So I am the vice president of talent and culture. I always tell people I have the fun part of HR. I've got a wonderful counterpart, Kathleen, who is director of people operations. She handles payroll, benefits, facilities, all kinds of things. There's things that she does, and I tell her all the time, is like, God forbid if anything ever happened to you. Like, I don't know half the stuff that you do because she just does it. She's just amazing like that. So we work very closely together. And helping our leaders and our team members to just kind of be the best self. And the other cool thing about Hatch Works is that we actually have a philanthropic arm called Hatch Futures, and our mission there is to break the cycle of poverty by exposing youth to STEM and now AI. And so, if you're familiar with junior achievement, we kind of function the same way. But what we're doing is our goal is to train 1,000 educators by 2030 in AI. So we have got a program that we can do virtually, we can do in person, where we basically train teachers on how they can leverage AI in their job. And then we have course content that they can actually go and teach their students. So it's everything from, of course, prompting, but more importantly, like how do you do learning plans? So let's say I'm a junior in high school and I really think data scientist sounds like a cool thing. Well, guess what? Google Gemini has a learning development gem that will create a course outline for you. So we want to enable the youth, both in the United States and in Latin America, to really embrace AI and to just go for whatever future they can dream of.
That's awesome. That's so important. I'm going to make sure all that's linked, Trent, in the show notes so people can connect
Yeah,
and find you
please.
guys. And I love the philanthropic arm. I love giving back. It's if you're in a spot to do so, giving back is so rewarding because you're helping make the world a better spot and
Yep.
um, teaching others that when they're in a spot to give back, they're going to do the same thing. And it's like this
Hmm.
constant. I call that a kind of a boomerang mindset. But you don't keep score.
Yeah.
You're just always serving others.
Yeah, our CEO, this is at his very core, and I joke around and say that he holds me more accountable on Hatch Futures than he does on Hatch Works. He's always like, "Where are we on this? Where are we on that? Where are we on this?" So I love that passion, and it's kind of just part of our corporate DNA. So it's why I call Hatch Works home.
So good. All right. Well, now it's time to go on what I call the lightning round.
All right.
This is where I show you the effects of taking too many hits, not bong hits, but football hits in college.
Okay.
Your job is to answer these questions as quickly as you can, and my job is to try to make you laugh.
All right. Go for it.
All right. True or false? Before joining Hatchworks, you were almost about to become a Hell's Angel.
False. I
I
don't
don't know
even know
why I
what a
said
Hell's
that, but I
Angel
guess
is.
I'm random. Here we go. Your favorite comedy movie ever is?
Ooh, Christmas Vacation.
So good.
And
Russ,
Dumb and Dumber. Dumb and Dumber.
tell me
There's
there's a
so many
chance.
quotes in there that yeah.
True or false? My friends told me, Casey, you would not be funny if it was not for 80s movies.
True.
That is true. I
Yeah,
quote
I could
80s
see
movies
that.
a lot. If you
Yeah.
were to go on vacation right now, where are you and your husband going alone?
Somewhere where it's an island and all I have to do is sit on the beach and flip a little flag for someone to bring me food or drink.
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, if your company and your coworkers went into your phone, what genre of music would they be surprised you listen to?
I listen to rave music on SoundCloud.
There you go.
Especially like whenever, because I'm a musician, so like people can listen to different music and stuff while they're working out. I have almost killed myself on a treadmill because a song went from a 4/4 time to a 6/8 time, and like my body is just so I listen to like oh gosh Pacheco. I listen to like Medina. I listen to all of these kind of things, but they blend the music together, and so it's kind of the same beat. So I don't lose my groove while I'm at the gym.
There we go. If I came to the house for dinner tonight, what would we have?
Oh wow, probably some type of steak, a vegetable, and rice. Both my husband and I like to eat very healthy and clean, so it's usually some version of a protein, rice or potato, and a green vegetable. So we're very exciting that way.
Sounds delicious. If there was to be a book written about your life, tell me the title.
Something's not like the other.
There we go. Okay, now Trent, something's not like the other. The title
Hmm. Yep.
is selling out in every bookstore. Amazon can't keep it. Barnes and Noble can't keep it. Every airport, I've been trying to get copy. I'm flying all over the place. I can't keep it. So Hollywood found out about this. They're going to make a movie. You are now the
Hmm.
casting director, and I need to know who is going to star Trent Cotton in this fantastic new hit movie on Netflix.
Ooh, probably Ryan Reynolds because if you were to hear me talk at work, I talk a lot like Deadpool. So
Okay.
it probably very easy character association there.
Love it. Fun fact, actually, I just interviewed a guy recently. He looks just like Ryan Reynolds. I'm like,
Oh, really?
oh, it's tripped me out. It's crazy. Okay. And then last question. Tell me two words that would describe Sealy.
Driven and compassionate.
Here we go. Lightning round's over. I was random as usual. You giggled a little bit. I'm thinking I'm going to give a nod to you because I think it was just, I got to give always up, let my guests win. But Trent, it was a blast getting to know you. I appreciate you sharing your story.
Thank you.
So much wisdom you dropped today. And I'm confident that someone will listen to this, will see it on whether it's on YouTube or Spotify or Apple, wherever they're going to consume it. And we're going to help somebody.
I hope so.
And I just appreciate you sharing it. And hopefully, people can learn more about Hatchworks. If you want to learn more about their company, please follow the links in the show notes below. And I just want to say thanks to everybody who continues to listen. Appreciate the community of dads we're building. We're trying to build better leaders over the home. The three superpowers that drive my life are humility, vulnerability, and curiosity. I'm working on these skills all the time, but I feel like they're life superpowers that creates more safer environments, creates more healthy environments, whether it's work or home. So if you've not taken time to leave us a review wherever you consume your podcast, please do that as well. But with that said, Trent, thank you for spending time with us. And on this February, this episode will come out here soon, but hopefully our paths will cross and we can meet in person one day. It'd be fun.
Love to do that. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
You bet.